generally speaking, we identification that there's been an incident. Our first goal is what we consider containment and eradication. So we want to stop the bleeding, so to speak, and we want to evict the threat actor from the environment. And I've got a case study later where we'll talk about what happens when that goes wrong. Once we've contained the environment and eradicated the threat actor from it, we can now kick off business resumption, which is basically getting that business back up and running. Again, talking about incident response plans and all the rest of it, we will focus on the business systems that are most critical to that business. Our goal is to get the business back up and running. Might not be 100%, but we want them to be able to operate, as we're talking about opening gates or issuing scripts, all that sort of stuff. What is it that we need to do to get to that 70, 80% operational? And then once the pressure's off and the business can operate, there's a reduction in what we call business interruption costs. Other things can be brought online in a more reasonable timeline. In the background, forensic analysis and what we call root cause analysis will happen. These things can run in parallel. You don't have to finish containment and eradication before forensics starts, but you generally want to make sure that you, in containment and eradication and business resumption, you're not destroying forensic evidence. So we try and capture the data and have a team that runs that as well. I had a pop-up. Now, out of the forensic analysis, one of the things we're trying to understand is what do the threat actor do while they're in the environment, and particularly with aged care, healthcare, and all these sort of medical-based institutes. We're really trying to understand, has the threat actor accessed sensitive customer information? And as a byproduct, have we triggered a requirement under the Privacy Act or other regulatory advice? If that happens, we will bring in legal partners. We always aim for legal partners who do this sort of thing all day, every day. There's some really good examples out there of PR and regulatory advice that's gone really well. And there's also some really bad examples where law firms who are probably very amazing established law firms, but they don't do this every day, have gone out with what they thought was good comms, and it hasn't landed well, and it's ended up in the media and turned into a bit of a nightmare. The biggest problem that happens at the end, though, is notification. And the reason it's a problem is most businesses just don't have any idea of the sort of data they store. And this is a governance problem in itself. Under the Privacy Act, there's certain requirements for storing data for a certain period. Obviously, medical has its own, legal has its own. Outside of that, but a lot of businesses collect more data than they need to collect. A lot of businesses keep the data longer than they need to collect. And then they're then in this position where they have to go tell all their customers, this is what we think may have been stored on you. We built a notification system that uses machine learning and funky stuff to analyze large sets of data and find things like passports and scan driver's licenses in the middle of other data sets so that we could give an informed notification. I very much believe that blanket notifications where you just tell people, look, you could have been part of the data breach and it might have been your credit card, it might have been your passport, just causes stress, and no one wants that. Any incident that's followed that approach has generally fared very negatively in the media. Our belief is if you can give them a very informed approach, then they know what to look for. Do they need to replace driver's licenses? Do we need to look at credit monitoring? It's a much more controlled and less stress environment. But those last two sections, the legal advice and notification, is where a lot of the cost goes into it. A lot of the time goes into it. It's not something that just happens overnight. And a lot of boards will be stressing, wanting outputs. Tell me when's this going to happen? Can you give us updates? Can you give us updates? And it can take a couple of weeks, a couple of months to get to that position. And when you've got the stakeholders of the board and customers you're trying to deal with, if you don't have the right people in the right seats, that can go very badly.